Okay, I think we're going to get started. And so, Kara, take it away.
Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Martha Canfield Memorial Free Library today. We're glad you're here for this important conversation about advanced directives, planning ahead so your wishes are understood and respected. We're fortunate to have a knowledgeable panel with us today. Joining us are Dr. Van from the Battenkill Valley Health Center, who will share a medical perspective, Sunny Tier from the Arlington Rescue Squad, offering insight from emergency response, and online we have Taylor Murray from the Vermont Ethics Network, who will help guide us through the ethical and practical considerations for advanced care planning. Thank you all for being here today and sharing your expertise with us. And without further ado, Dr. Van.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a subject I'm really passionate about, and it's something that I've really grown into in my time in Vermont. I think Vermonters are ahead of the game in planning ahead for the end of life. We're a very gray state, and so I think that plays a role. I'll just start by framing the things that I think are kind of the why of it. Getting an advanced directive together ahead of time, planning ahead, is a gift not only to your future self so that your wishes are honored, but also a gift to your family or anyone who survives you. I've been at the bedside with families that have estranged siblings or people who've just been further away and come together around the end of life, who have very different ideas about what the person who is terminally ill, what they would want. And those can be incredibly painful moments for a family, and also can, unfortunately, that pain can live long past the person who passes on. And families are often really torn apart by discord around this time. And so making your wishes clear and having these conversations as a family, and I'm using the term family loosely, whoever you consider your family, your people, so that they can feel confident that when you can't make a decision for yourself, they are speaking for you, so that they can kind of carry your voice. I think the preparation of this document is also an opportunity to really reflect on what it is that you want. I had a visit with a patient recently, and he said, you know what? I'm 82 years old, I've had enough doctoring in my life, and what matters most to me is spending my time with my family at home, and the less I see you, the better. That's, no hard feelings, right? If I can then think about medical decisions that we make together with that in mind, that helps me provide better care to this patient and give him what he needs. So it's, I think, in addition to the nuts and bolts of I want chest compressions or I don't want a breathing tube or a feeding tube, it's really helpful for your primary care provider to know what's most important to you. And so as kind of a sidebar, I'll put in a plug for those of you who are 65 and older to attend your annual wellness visit, because one of the really important questions we ask at that visit is what matters to you? And if we know what matters, everything else can fall into place. That's kind of the more kind of emotional side of the advanced directives. And on the practical side, the document that I shared with you is something I'm going to give a shout out to my medical student from this past fall, Ben Corin, who prepared it as a project. He knows our health center takes care of a lot of seniors. And although an advanced directive is not exclusively for people over 65, it's often the population we think of it in. But if you're under 65, it's still a good idea to know what it is that you would want, because those decisions are infinitely harder when it's a young person who's injured or ill and can't speak for themselves. And so this document goes through some of the data that we have on happens if you do get chest compressions in the field, so outside of the hospital. What your chances of survival are if you do have a ventilation tube in your chest to help you breathe. In order to treat something, maybe the intention is for the short term. What are your chances of surviving at every age? Because the decisions you put in this document are only, they only go into effect when you can no longer speak for yourself, right? No one's going to do chest compressions on you if you're able to say, I'm fine, my heart's beating, right? Or I can breathe, or I'm having a hard time breathing, but I don't want a breathing tube. I don't want to be ventilated. If you can speak for yourself, that still carries as that's the primary expression of your wishes, and this document that is secondary. But it's really helpful to know at the time that you're putting this on paper where you are. So if you're 85 and dependent on oxygen, then perhaps a ventilation tube is not a good idea for you, because your chances of ever surviving the removal of that tube are vanishingly low. And so understanding kind of what the odds are and what you want to, what the outcome is that you might contemplate in that circumstance, being dependent on a ventilator and then having to decide, well, now it's time to turn off the machine. All of those are incredibly difficult decisions. Don't bring them up at Christmas dinner like I did. Bad idea. But they're important conversations to have with your family, and they can actually bring people much closer when you're having these conversations. So I won't go through the details of the survival rates for each item, because one, they're somewhat variable depending on the individual and their health condition, and also by age, but also because you have it in a document which I'm happy to share with anyone who came in later or who wants to write into us who's seeing this on video. I can hand it over to you maybe to talk about what happens from the emergency response.
So, from a practical perspective of the emergency side of things, when we respond to a 911 call for whatever reason, especially if the patient is unresponsive, we operate under what's called implied consent. If that patient is unable to talk to us, we anticipate that patient would want resuscitation. Where advanced directives and DNRs come into play, that's your way of saying, I don't want that done. In order for us to honor that, we have to be able to see those documents. So we encourage people to put those documents someplace that are visible. A lot of time, refrigerators are mentioned. If they're stuck on a refrigerator with a magnet, we can find those fairly easily. People usually keep all of their medications in the kitchen. If you keep a copy of your DNR with your medications, that's another easy spot for us to find it. Anywhere that's accessible. And then we're going to be able to honor that DNR. And we like it to be accessible because in those kinds of situations, we have to make quick decisions. Time is tissue. And so if we're going to do interventions, we have to do them fairly quickly. So if that documentation isn't easily accessible, there's a time period that if that patient wants resuscitation done, the outcome is going to be a lot greater likelihood of it being positive if we start interventions immediately versus if we wait 5-10 minutes to find all the documentation. That outcome has a much lower likelihood of having a positive outcome very quickly. And so in an emergency situation, we have to make on-the-spot decisions about your medical care, and if we don't have the ability to say, they don't want this, we're going to start those interventions, and it might not be what you wish. And ultimately, we want to do what what the individual wants, what the patient wants, and what is going to make them, or fulfill their wishes. And that's, to your point, can be difficult for a family to deal with. It's never easy for anybody.
Taylor?
Sorry, I'm joining you virtually, so my visual cues are a little off. But thank you all for being here. My name is Taylor Murray. I'm the Advanced Care Planning Program Manager for the Vermont Ethics Network and the Vermont Advanced Directive Registry. I'm all the way up here in Montpelier, but we serve the entire state. And so I'm happy to just expand on what Dr. Van and Sunny have talked about. And I feel like the first thing that I want to share with you all is the difference between advanced directives and DNR closed orders, because we've talked a little bit about those two different things, and they really serve different purposes. So Dr. Van was talking a lot about the value of the conversation, about goals and values, what you would think about certain healthcare situations if you found yourself in that position, and then telling your close friends and family members, people you appoint as your decision makers, what would matter to you and what you would think if something happened and they needed to speak for you, how they could really advocate for you. And that person that you pick to be your decision maker, that person's called your healthcare agent. And you're appointing that person in what's called an advanced directive. And I believe that there are copies of my recommended advanced directive form in the room there with you all for you to take home. That document we call the short form, but in Vermont there's no rules about what kind of form you use. We're very loose with the options for advanced directive forms. So that's the one I recommend to people. It's sort of a good middle ground, but I'll show you at the end of my little speech here where you can find all the versions of the forms that I recommend, and you can browse to find the one that works best for you. So an advanced directive, which we talked about, that's a document where you have a lot of space to share your values, what you think about different healthcare situations, what matters to you, what makes you you, what brings quality to your life, and what are the things that you're worried about. I think that's a question that we sort of all should ask ourselves as we think about these future planning kinds of documents, is we can't predict. There's no crystal ball to say, oh, this is exactly what will happen to me. How can I plan for every possible scenario? Unfortunately, I hate to be the one to say it, but you just can't. What you can do is you can share what matters to you. You can tell people close to you how you think about these kinds of questions, what values you put a lot of emphasis on, what trade-offs you might be willing to make in order to have more time, and then just things you're worried about, situations you've seen other people go through or heard about, where you think, gosh, if that ever happens to me, this is what I would want you to do. And I'm sure we can all think of a circumstance where someone close to us has experienced something medically that either we think, that went perfectly, I hope I get to that doctor and they do that to me and I get to get home or back to doing this right away. And then the converse of, I would never want to do that. I saw that person do that and that seemed terrible. I do not want that to happen to me. And your doctor and your family members, your loved ones, that's what they want to know. Because if they're going to be faced with making medical choices for you and they can't talk to you, what they are begging for is just a conversation before that happens about how you thought about any of these things. So when doctors say to them, like Dr. Van, they say, this is what's going on, what would they think if we told them this? What would they say to us? Those people who are tasked, your healthcare agent, with making those decisions for you can say, actually, I kind of have an idea. This is what would matter most. Are we going to be able to get back to doing these things that are really bringing quality of life to this person? Or are we not going to be able to achieve those goals? What kinds of trade-offs or situation might they end up in if we go down these different because the truth is, we talk a lot about wishes in this world, but when we're in these really serious medical situations, people's wishes are that they weren't sick, that they weren't in the hospital, that we didn't have to do any of this, right? So I think another way to approach this, if that idea of what I wish would happen doesn't sit right with you or just feels hard to answer, can be, what would you think? What would you say if someone told you that this was what you were facing medically, and there were a certain set of options in front of you? So an advanced directive is a document that gives you all sorts of space to be in that gray area, for you to think, if, then, maybe, I would want to try, here's what matters, there's so much space for that. And those documents you just can complete yourself with 2 witnesses. You don't need it to go to a doctor to do an advanced directive, you don't need a lawyer. You can do them at home, have your neighbors come over and witness them once you're done. And anyone can do them as long as you have the capacity to make your own medical decision. This is different from a DNR post order, or a do not resuscitate / clinician order for life-sustaining treatment. As Sunny was describing, if you, out in the world as an outpatient, do not want to be resuscitated under any circumstances, an advanced directive is not good enough. All this if-then conversation about maybe this, maybe that does not work for Sunny. This decision needs to be made quickly. We do not have time to read 6 pages about, oh, well, maybe if I could recover, then I would want you to try. No, he does not have time for that. No emergency responder has time for that. What they need is a signed clinician order, an order you complete with your doctor that says, I give consent for you to not resuscitate me. And the reason for this is, as Sunny described, we assume that everybody gives implied consent to be resuscitated under normal circumstances. But if we don't do it, if we do not resuscitate you, there's no do-over. We can't go back in 3 hours and say, oh, actually, yes, this is a circumstance where we should have resuscitated you. There's no choice there. And so without that order where you've sat down with a doctor and said, a clinician, and said, I understand the risk of not being resuscitated is that I will die. They need that official informed consent refusal to be resuscitated in order to act in the field on you not being resuscitated. Now, I will go over the forms that we have on our website, but what you can say in your advanced directive, if you think, well, there might be times when I want you to resuscitate me, but there are also times where I would think, no, we're going to stop, right? That there's some circumstances where I would not want you to keep trying to bring me back. In your advanced directive, you can give instructions to your healthcare agent to say, if the medical circumstance starts to look like I am not going to recover from X, Y, and Z criteria, or after a certain point, I don't want you to keep trying to bring me back, keep doing life-sustaining treatment. You can give your healthcare agent instruction to say they can then consent for an order to not resuscitate you. So a DNR is different from advanced directives because you can complete one yourself with your clinician, but also you can give your healthcare agent, the person who speaks for you, the authority to fill one out if your medical circumstance changes and they know, we've reached the stage where they would not want to be resuscitated and we want to put this order in place. So your healthcare agent could also complete a DNR order for you if you were not able to complete one for yourself. And this is quite commonly done when people are in a state of declining health for a while. And as they approach end of life, they can't make their own decisions. Your healthcare agent is driving the bus and they say, look, we've done everything they wanted us to try, and now we've reached the stage where we just want to keep them comfortable. If an off-ramp presents itself, like a cardiac event, we want to take that off-ramp, and that's where your healthcare agent can step in, put these orders in place to make sure that we're not doing things to you that you don't want us to do. So I just want to be clear about the two documents we're talking about here, one being advanced directives that gives a lot of room for gray area, the other being a DNR post order that's very black and white, absolutely no, never, or yes, do those things. And they really apply in different circumstances. A DNR post order is designed in an outpatient setting where we're making these sort of quick decisions. It can be used to enforce a care plan once we're reaching an end-of-life stage, but that DNR post order has to be done with a doctor, and it can be done by either you or someone who's speaking on your behalf, but it has to be done with a clinician. The Advanced Directive, lots of room for nuance. You can do that at home, have it signed by witnesses, but you have to do it for yourself. No one else can complete it for you. And that's a really important part of the Advanced Directive because it's designed to speak for you if you can't speak for yourself. So I have some other things to talk about in terms of forms to show you, but in general, I just want you to know that Advanced Directives are really the place we recommend everyone start. That's where you're going to get those good conversations about what are we thinking about, how would I feel about different health circumstances. I don't necessarily recommend that anyone start on the DNR post side of things, because that is a really hard line. And most people, for most of their lives, we exist in a bit of a gray area, where we have different thoughts about different circumstances. So if you're doing and approaching this for the very first time, I would start with an Advanced Directive, think about all those questions that it asks you, and then if after you're doing them you think, wow, I really don't want this under any circumstances, that's when I would then go to your doctor and say, look, I want to talk about how we can prevent this intervention from happening in any circumstance. But starting with the Advanced Directive is really what I recommend. And it's not just for people who are on end of life. In Vermont, we don't have any hard and fast rules about who would speak for you if you could not speak for yourself. Other states have like a default next of kin, where they say, okay, it's automatically your spouse, or it's automatically your child who would speak for you if a medical circumstance needed someone to make a decision and you couldn't. We don't have that in Vermont. And so that can lead to a lot of confusion if something happens, even if it's recoverable, but you're not able to speak for yourself. Last November, was in a near head-on collision on Route 2, going 50 miles an hour. A guy crossed into my lane, completely driving at me. It was a miracle that I walked away from that accident without being injured. But very easily, at 29, I could have been brought to the hospital, completely unable to speak for myself. Maybe in a recoverable circumstance, but they would have needed someone to talk to. And in Vermont, that could have been my parents, but it also could have been my boyfriend. It also could have been my brother. And they would have had to sort of juggle that at the hospital. We've got everyone here. Who's in charge? That's the real question, right? And that can be good, right? It can mean in Vermont, if you haven't picked someone, we can use whoever shows up, if it's an urgent situation. But also, I can guess you can imagine a person who might show up and we wouldn't really trust them to make the decisions. I'm sure we can all think of someone in our lives who would want to help, but maybe not really know what we want. And so an Advanced Directive is a tool for everyone, regardless of your age, to say, this is who I trust, this is who I've spoken with, and if you need to know what I would think, these are the people you should talk to, and I've outlined them in the document. So whether you're 18 or 81, picking at least a healthcare agent in your Advanced Directive is really something that I recommend for everyone. And we'll take a look at the forms now, so I can show you where you can sort of dive into the process, depending on how much information you want to give. Because some people just want to pick an agent, and other people have a lot of things to say about what they would think in different circumstances. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up the forms, but I don't know if we want to pause for Q&A before I do that. Let me know.
Yeah, Taylor, it's Kate here. I was thinking, Dr. Van mentioned a little bit about how, the primary care provider plays a part in starting this conversation for families. Dr. Van, if I'm a patient that you've seen, once I've filled out my Advanced Directive, do I bring that to you so that you have a copy of it? What are my next steps as a patient?
So although there's like, you're never really required to do anything more, if you want it to be used, there are two things that I recommend you do. One is bring a copy to our office, to your primary care provider's office. And the other is to upload it to the registry, which I'm sure Taylor can tell us more about. And by the way, big shout out to the Vermont Ethics Network. They are a tremendous partner, and the documents they prepare are they're far ahead of anything I've seen in other states I've worked in. So shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, so why don't you go ahead and dive into the forms, Taylor?
Yes, and I can I'll look at the forms and then I'll show you at the end of the forms where it gives you instructions to add a document to the registry. And we provide a full complement of services around adding your document to the registry. It's free for all Vermonters, so we'll talk about what that looks like as well.
Wonderful. And while you're pulling that up, for the folks in attendance, as you're thinking of questions, we're really in an informal setting. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask that in real time.
Absolutely. So I'm on our website right now, but to get a point about asking a question, I used to be a middle school teacher. You cannot possibly interrupt me more than a room full of 12-year-olds, so feel free to stop me if you have a question. And I'm sure they will also be far more on topic than those 12-year-old questions as well.
actually
so
have-
I hope everyone can see this.
We can.
This is our website at the Vermont Ethics Network. There are a few different sections to what we do. We wear a lot of hats, as I like to say. But the place you're going to come if you're looking to start your advanced directive, first I would come over here to forms. We have the forms in, I think, 15 different languages now. But if you're looking for English, you can just click on forms. If you're looking for something in another language, you're going to click on the forms in more languages. And that has a bilingual translation of two different forms that we produce. At the top here, you're going to see these 4 different forms. There's actually, I think I have 6 up here right now. What I've provided for you at your location is, actually Kate's printed them, are the Advanced Directive short form. This form has 6 pages. It covers basically all of the questions that I just brought up and that we've all talked about so far. It's really the middle of the road. It lets you appoint a healthcare agent, share thoughts, values, preferences. It lets you give your agent instruction if they needed to complete a DNR order if you were seriously ill or at end of life. It lets you talk about funeral and burial arrangements, and then it has room for signing and witnessing. That's definitely where I direct most people. If that feels like too much, if you're like, I haven't thought about any of those medical decision questions, but I know who you should talk to, I know who I would want as my agent, then I would use this appointment of a healthcare agent form. Every advanced directive lets you appoint a healthcare agent. This form is like just the agent. And especially for younger people, certainly if you're encouraging your children to do this, or just, I mean, this is the form, the appointment of an agent form that my mother made me do when I turned 18. So this is really, you do not need to think about what you would want in different medical scenarios. You don't need to think about end of life at all to do this. It's just, here's who I trust, and then doctors can rely on the fact that you're going to talk to those people that you trust about what matters to you as things come up. Now, if either of these forms seems like not enough, you want more space, you want more questions to think about, you can use what we call the Advanced Directive long form. Now, I don't recommend anyone start here. This form is close to 20 pages long with pages of instructions and form sections to fill out. This is the original Advanced Directive, so if you did one a long time ago or got one from your doctor in the early 2000s and you thought, what the heck is this? This is way too long, I'm never going to do this. This is the form that might have stumped you. But as we have more medical experiences in our lives, this form might make more sense for you. This is also the form that has considerations for psychiatric care. So if you or someone you're encouraging to fill out this form has experienced a psychiatric emergency, needed to be hospitalized around a mental health concern, this form might really speak to them because it asks you to say what worked for you last time. So depending on where you're at in your journey of thinking about future medical Pick the one that feels right for you, and I would encourage you to start with the short form, the one that you have physical copies of there, and then sort of suss out, do I want more or do I want less? Then you can go from there. There are other versions produced by other organizations. Prepare for Your Care is an organization from California. They did forms for all 50 states. This is sort of a middle ground, kind of like the long form, but a little more colorful. There's also forms from Disability Rights and the Department of Aging, Independent Disabilities and Independent Living. This is very similar to the other forms on our website, but just different format. And if you find a form that isn't on our website that you think, I really like this, you should use it. There's no requirement that you use the forms that we produced. And right now I'm just going to show you the short form so we can take a quick look at signing and witnessing, because that's really what makes these forms legal documents. Regardless of the form that you pick, in Vermont what we require is that you sign it and that 2 adult witnesses sign the form. Those witnesses, there's a few restrictions on them, but as long as you are not related to your witness, and that witness is not your healthcare agent, the person you're appointing as your decision maker, they're a good witness. And so I'll show you that. My screen seems to be lagging a little bit. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay, good. Sometimes it's just my computer wants to do too much. Screens, video, audio, but as long as you can hear me, we're good. So this is the signature page of our short form advanced directive, but every advanced directive is going to have a page like this. Our document is page 5. And at the top here, you sign, and then beneath that, your 2 witnesses are going to sign. And this is what legalizes your advanced directive. And you can see at the top in this gray bar, it says the following people may not be witnesses: your agents, spouse, parents, siblings, children, or grandchildren. So anybody else is really fair game as a witness. I always recommend a friends and neighbors witnessing party. Encourage people in your life to do advanced directives. Bring them all together. Sign each other's. Everyone can be done together, and you can sort of check it off your list for the year. I can't encourage you to drink, but I have been told people will open bottles of wine once everyone's documents are complete. And then once you've done this piece, it's really done. It's a legal document. And then it's the question of what should you do with it, which we already sort of started to talk about. The next page of this document has a little cheat sheet for that. It asks you who you've given copies to, and what I always recommend is first, your healthcare agents. If you've asked them to be your decision maker, they gotta lay eyes on this, they should know what it says, and they should really ask you some questions. Oh, you wrote on page 2 that you wouldn't want dialysis, tell me more about that. Or you said no CPR, but what circumstances were you thinking of? Let them ask you those questions as you're filling it out or afterwards so they can really understand what you meant if they need to be your person. I would give copies to your doctors. Your primary care provider is going to be asking you every year, and they should also be able to know where you're at, what you're thinking about, maybe what's changed since the last time you did a document like this, and navigate that with you. The Vermont Advanced Directive Registry is the first box here, but this is not required. You don't have to register for it to be valid, but I obviously recommend it, and I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. You may see that the hospital would like a copy, your local hospital. Depending on your health system, giving a copy to your doctor might also add it to your hospital record as well. But if you have records at multiple hospitals, or also go to the VA hospital, things like that, I would share a copy of this document with anyone who has a medical record for you, because we don't always know what's going to happen, and this is the kind of thing where more copies, more fail-safes, more people knowing the plan is always going to be better. And then some people will also want to share this with other family members, and to have everyone again be on the same page and know what you're thinking about if something were to happen. Now, the last page of any document that you download off of our website, the last pages are going to be your form to register with the Vermont Advanced Directive Registry. These last 2 pages give us the information that we need to create your account, which we do right here in Montpelier. And then the page afterwards is where you basically give your signature to permit us to make your account. You have a lot of options for how you get this document to us. You can go through our website, which I'll show you, to upload the document yourself. You have a completed scanned PDF. You can do that yourself from your home computer. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of like making an account with your favorite online retailer in terms of just giving your name and your address and phone number information for that. If you don't want to go through the user upload process yourself, you think, I have not made a PDF in years, or I don't want to figure out how to do that, I don't have a PDF copy, that's fine. You can mail your document to us here in Montpelier. We scan and upload documents every single day. We're doing close to 600 documents a month now. Vermonters are far and away the most on top of it with Advanced Directives. So we have over 60,000 people registered now, which is really incredible for a state our size. That's close to 10% of our population. You can also fax the document to us. There's a fax number right here on the form. Or if you have it in a PDF copy and you just think, I don't know how I'm going to do this user upload thing, that's fine too. You can email us a copy of your document and we'll make the account for you and upload it. We review everything that comes to us. So if you send us something and it's missing pages or isn't signed properly or doesn't have everything that we need, we will communicate one-on-one with you to make sure that you get what you need and we get it into your account. Every week we mail corrective packets out to people who just, something happened when they mailed it to us, they missed a page in the scanning. We will help you through that process. We have direct one-on-one customer support, and you can always call us or email us if you think, I want to start this, but I just want someone to guide me through it. We're here to do that as well. So this form at the end here, this is required if you send it to us via mail, fax, or email. But if you do user upload, you basically are going to do this piece online. You can still fill this part out, but you don't need to. So I'll show you right now how you can use our website to get to user upload. And the benefits of being registered are that, one, your Advanced Directive is accessible by all of the hospitals in Vermont and in the country. So if you were hospitalized outside of Vermont, the Vermont Registry, the Vermont Advanced Directive Registry, is connected to a national database, and you'll get a wallet ID card with a hotline phone number. So if you were in a car accident in, I don't know, Arizona, they could call the Advanced Directive Registry and get a faxed copy of your document anytime, day or night. The other benefit is that sometimes things change where we don't really want to do a whole new document to fix it. Like, my daughter got a new phone number, or I moved. Changing your Advanced Directive, what it says in the document, requires that you do a whole new one, because the legal document, you got to re-sign and re-witness it to make sure everything is legal and valid. But that's a pain if just something tiny has changed and nothing has changed about your values. So being registered means that there's an easily accessible account where if you move, you can go in and update your address without having to do a whole new document. And you can save some of those little housekeeping updates for a time, maybe a year or two down the line, when you come back and you say, actually I want to change some of the things I've said about my values. And people find that to be much easier than doing whole new documents every time someone's phone number changes. So those kinds of admin updates can easily be done in the registry. If you want to do user upload, or just want to learn more about registering in general, right next to the Forms tab is our tab on the Advanced Directive Registry. And there's instructions on how to register, and we have a page just about user upload as well. There's instructions here. If you've never registered before, you're going to click on this blue button that says Create My Vader Account. That's our little acronym for any Star Wars fans out there. That's a fun little joke. The Vermont Advanced Directive Registry, which we like to call the Vader. You can click on this blue button right here, and it will bring you to the to make your account. You fill out your information, and then create your account, and then you upload your document. It's really a two-step process, and then you're all set. We'll go back to our website for a moment. If you want a full walkthrough, there are, embarrassingly, perhaps for me, walkthrough videos of me making an account on our website, so you can follow along while I create an account as you do this yourself if you'd like to do this on your own. If you already have an advanced directive and it's already registered, but today you were inspired to maybe do a new one, you can click over here to updating your account, and we have a place for you to either get a new form if you need one, but also to log into your account. And here you can log in, and then this will give you the information to create and upload, to upload a new completed advanced directive here. So the only thing to really think about when you're going through the registry process is, do I already have an account? And if you do, there's a different path for you than if you don't. But either way, if you are just wondering where you're at in this process, give us a call. We manage all of this for the entire state, and we're happy to look you up anytime to just see where you're at and get you the right instructions to set you on your path to have an updated advanced directive anytime.
Thank you, Taylor. Dr. Van, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I had a question that comes up sometimes with patients at the health center. Unfortunately, we do have a pretty sizable population of folks who don't have children or are estranged from their children. They are not partnered. They don't have a lot of close friends. There's a lot of social isolation. What do you recommend in that circumstance in terms of who should be their healthcare agent?
Yeah, absolutely. So first I will say that it doesn't need to be a family member. It can certainly be a friend who you trust to be your healthcare agent. But I would say that there's really what you're looking for in a healthcare agent is someone that you trust. And if you feel like you don't really have a person that you trust to be your healthcare agent, you don't have to have one. You don't have to pick a person to be your decision maker. What you can do is fill out a document that describes your values, tells us about you, and you're kind of putting some of the decision making in the hands of the healthcare team. If it were absolutely necessary to make decisions to have consent for care to be directed by an individual and you had not appointed a healthcare agent, that might mean that the hospital is pursuing public guardianship for you, to have a public guardian be the medical decision maker for you in a specific circumstance. But a lot of that can be avoided if you, in your advanced directive, describe your values and say quite clearly, this is what matters to me. It would allow the healthcare team to navigate a lot more situations, especially because when these kinds of things tend to come into question, it's when there's two possible scenarios. One scenario where we pursue a lot of aggressive intervention that might bring you back to some level of recovery, or one where we don't pursue a lot of aggressive intervention and your life might be shorter, but we would not be putting you in a situation where your quality of life would look a lot different for a longer amount of time. So letting us know what your limits are matters a lot if you're doing a document where you don't have a healthcare agent. What is a circumstance that would be unacceptable to you? That's what I really would want someone to think about if they are doing a document without a healthcare agent.
So they could
If
complete the
you want
regular...
someone to appoint as your healthcare agent who is sort of just outside of, you don't have anyone in your immediate circle, there is an organization called Athena Advocacy out of White River Junction. Victoria Lloyd, she has gone through the process to be able to be appointed as a healthcare agent. This does cost money. There is a cost associated with her services, but if you're interested in that and you want someone who's essentially a professional healthcare advocate for people on the private sector, Athena Advocacy is where I normally direct people.
Thank you. And so someone could complete the short form and just leave the healthcare agent blank and complete the rest of it, and it would still be valid.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yes. Because we're very flexible in Vermont about our laws around what is an advanced directive, you can really customize these forms. So if you're skipping anything, you think, I don't have an answer, I don't know who I would pick, I don't know what I would say, just draw a line through it and move on to the next question. The only thing I tell people not to do if they're really customizing these forms is to remove entire pages, because then it might appear like you've lost a page rather than you've intentionally removed it. But yes, if you don't want to pick a healthcare agent, but you have a lot, or you have anything really to say about what your values are around your healthcare, skip that agent section and give us a document that describes how you think about these scenarios. Obviously, I encourage everyone to have an agent, but if that's not possible, you can still do a document without one.
And Taylor, it's my understanding too that for an example like Dr. Van gave, that if, I'm estranged from a family member that I definitely don't want making decisions for me, I can include that in there as well, so that it's clear that, in a world where it's kind of unclear who can make those decisions in Vermont, where it's, there's a little bit of that gray area, that this is for sure someone I don't want making these decisions.
You are absolutely correct, and I'll show you on the short form. It's right on the, since we're talking about healthcare agents, and you all have this form physically there. This is the page where you appoint your healthcare agent, part 1. Pick your agents up here. You can list other people who have good information but aren't necessarily your healthcare agent here. And then what Kit's talking about is right here at the bottom. I like to call this the survivor vote off the island section. You can call it whatever you want. This is those who should not be consulted. So if you think, well, I'm not sure who I want to pick, or I know who I want to pick, but I also know who I do not trust, do not want to talk to these people, you can list them here. And people often do this. Like I said earlier, we can all probably think of a person who might want to be helpful, but actually not really be helpful, and that we would want to make sure is not asked to make decisions. And people certainly do this here and list someone just to make sure that the person you don't trust isn't used as a resource.
Great, thank you.
I will interject this as well. Like she was saying, the only document that we will follow to the T every time is the DNR, DNI, and COLST form. If you have specific advanced directives that you want followed, it's okay to have that conversation with us as an EMS provider. We'll advocate for you at the hospital. Most of the interventions that we do are to stabilize you, to get you to the hospital where you can get the care that you really need. And the ER doctors are really good at having that conversation with you as a patient and saying, what do you want done? This is what we see and this is what we're diagnosing. Do you want us to send you to another facility where you can get this care done? Do you want us to do this procedure here? And it's throughout the entirety of emergency care, everything is based on what the patient wants. And so that document, if you're awake and alert, able to have that conversation with us, we'll have that conversation. Where a lot of this documentation comes in is when you're not able to have that conversation. And if a patient is awake and alert and say they want CPR done, even though they've got a DNR present and in front of us, we will do CPR if they're capable of making that decision.
And Taylor, so if, for example, I register my advanced directive and in a couple of years some health issues arise and maybe my view on what I had originally planned is what I wanted, I can make those changes. How often or how seldom do people need to make changes to their advanced directive?
Yeah, I mean, professionally, I would love it if every single person looked at their directive once a year and just said, is this still what I want? Realistically, I think most people are looking at these documents every 3 to 5 years, or when something big happens. When someone in your life or you personally experience a major medical event or a major personal event, like moving, relocating, divorce, death in the family, things like that. Those are the kinds of things that can really trigger us to look at these documents again, mostly from the angle of, is the person that I picked still going to be able to do this? That's really the first thing that I think a lot of people are thinking about. But then also, if there is a major new diagnosis in your health situation, I absolutely recommend that you go and look at this. And maybe that you bring your directive to your clinician and you say, look, this is what my directive says. I know we just found this out, that we're gonna also have to manage this going forward. What should I put in my directive? What do I need to think about that I didn't think about before we knew this information? And so, yes, death, divorce, diagnosis, relocation, those are really the big triggers in our lives to look at our directives again. But if you wanted to set a calendar reminder, I would go with every 3 years to just make sure that everything still seems good and is what you would say to those questions. And if it looks good, you don't need to do a thing. You just leave it the way that it is. If you think, I got to change that, I really don't think that that is what I would say anymore or how I'm thinking about these questions anymore, the best thing that you can do is complete a new document and distribute it to everyone who had copies of the old one. Some people want to make amendments, like, oh, can't I just change this one page? Can't I just make this one cross out? The issue is that if you do those kinds of things, especially when you're talking about decisions like we have around CPR at end of life or breathing machines at end of life, multiple versions of the document with this one has initials and cross-outs, it can get really messy. And so the best thing to do is to complete a new document whenever you decide you want to make changes. But if time does not allow for that, if you think, I really just need someone to know this, I'm going into surgery tomorrow, I looked at my document and it does not say what I would want it to say, what I want you to do is call your healthcare agent. Or write a note to them that says, look, I just looked at this document. If this happens to me, I just want you to know that this is how I'm thinking about this now. They can be your advocate. You can tell the doctors as well, my directive says this, but I want you to know, I want you to put in my record, this is how I want you to proceed, even though that conflicts with my document. And that verbal instruction, just like Sunny was saying, speaking to you is the gold standard, right? So if you have to make a change and time is short, I definitely want you to verbalize that to the people who are giving you care and your healthcare agent, and then deal with the paperwork later. But if time allows, do a new document, make it clean and pretty, and send it out to everyone so that everyone can have the latest version.
Wonderful. Does anyone attending have any questions they'd like to ask any of our panelists? We are always welcome to receive any communication. If you have questions or follow-up, we'll include Taylor's contact information at the Vermont Ethics Network, but at the health center, we're always available to help answer any questions you might have. I really appreciate, everyone being here today. I love the collaboration of the health center and the rescue squad and the Vermont Ethics and the library as our host. It just really community at its best. So thank you so much. And we look forward to having future conversations around these important ones. Dr. Van, any closing?
I just wanted to plug one more resource that exists out there, which is called the Conversation Project. It's a website, among other things, of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. And they have a lot of resources around having conversations about end-of-life care. There are, as silly as it seems, like card decks that you can use to kind of prompt conversations. And many of them are really actually quite moving. So, what are the things you want to remember about me when I'm gone? Things like that. A whole set of books that are interesting reading. And good resources if taking the first step to that conversation is very difficult, or even if it's not.
Taylor, any last minute, words you'd like to leave us with?
Dr. Van actually just took my recommendation about conversation tools from the Conversation Project. My one plug is going to be for Vermont Advanced Directive Week, which is April 13th to 17th. So we're going to be putting out a lot of material on our website, and there's going to be a lot of community events coming around, but if you can do one thing from today, if it is not doing your advanced directive or anything like that, it is just to sit down and talk with someone in your life about something you learned, something you thought about a little differently, and just share a little bit about this conversation in your community. Because really, if you do nothing else from anything like this, but talk to someone in your life about what matters to you, that is a huge step. So many people never do that, and we are just sitting and wondering when it really matters. And so these are great tools to document, but the conversation is what matters the most. So if this inspires you in any way, I hope to start a little bit of that conversation in your lives.
Great, thank you. And thanks to GNAT too for filming today so we can share this with the community, the broader community moving forward. So thanks to all of our community partners and thanks for being here. Have a great day.